All right, folks, pay attention here real quick. We're going to interview someone today who is in a business that the business he is in impacts your life hundreds and hundreds of times a day, and you don't ever even think about it. Voice talent business is where we are today. These are the guys and gals out there who do voiceovers for anything you can name. I'm really excited to meet this person because I've never talked to anyone here on the air who's in this business. The name of our guest today is Kenneth Bryant. He is Kenneth Bryant Voice Talent. Kenneth, welcome to the show today. Glad to have you here, sir. How are you?
I am excellent. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, I really appreciate you being here, and I don't think it's too out of line for me to say that you personally, but your whole category of business, if you will, impacts all of us hundreds and hundreds of times today, and we don't even think about it. Give me a couple of applications of where people use voice talent.
Oh my goodness. Chances are very good that your viewers listen to a voiceover even before watching your broadcast on Spotify, on watching a video on YouTube, watching a video on a website, obviously on a TV commercial. It's so ubiquitous you don't even think about it. When you go to a gas station and you're pumping gas in the gas station, the pump starts talking to you. That's a voiceover. Your children's toys, a lot of them have songs or various poems, sort of limericks that are attached to them. Voiceover actors do those.
Well, it's just fascinating because it's the scope of everything, but it leads me to the natural first question. How in the heck did you get involved in this? Obviously, you have great pipes, as they like to say, but there's a lot of people that have pipes. It's a lot more than that. We'll get to that in a minute. But you personally, how did you get involved in this business?
I was working at the Fort Sam Houston Post Exchange in San Antonio, Texas, back when scanners were first introduced. And as you might expect, they were problematic at best. They were filled with bugs. So I was constantly having to get onto the loudspeaker calling for price checks. And the individual who ran the entire Post Exchange at the time, Mr. Hodge, his name was, he obviously heard me and wanted me to take over the job for him. So he took me into this little room that had an old world style dictaphone on it that holds 20 to, I think it was 20, 30-second tracks. He handed me all the flyers and he said, "You're doing this for me from now on." And that's what sold me. And I've been doing it for a long time.
Well, it's funny. You hear about the movie actresses that get discovered in the drugstore. You got discovered on the base there doing your job, but it seems to be one that you love it. And as you mentioned, you've been doing it quite a while. As we get here today, if you want to mention specific clients, great. But if you want to go into specific categories that you work with, that would be interesting as well. Go ahead.
Well, I primarily work in the business commercial voiceover industry. I've read for Dell EMC, I've read for Marriott, I've read for Swiffer, I've read for the Mars Corporation, the candy bar company. I've read for international corporations like Dassault Systems and Sartorius in Germany. I've done innumerable number of voiceover narrations for mid-sized to smaller businesses, but I also do character voices for audiobooks and animations and video games and serialized podcasts. Anything that has a voice attached to it, I have either auditioned for or have worked on.
It just fascinates me because obviously I kind of talk for a living myself, nothing on the lines that you do, but it's always fascinated me. I know a lot of people think all it takes is a great voice. You have it, I don't, all right? But it takes a little bit more, so much more than just the voice, everything up to the equipment. Go into someone thinking, you know what, I've always been told I have a good voice. I want to be in voice talent. Where do they need to go?
Oh my goodness, that is the million-dollar question. I get asked that all the time. Of course, being able to speak well is a primary concern in voiceover work, but it is the most basic requirement. Truthfully, what you'll need to get is some coaching first, is what I advise people when they ask. And after that, you need to spend quite a bit of money for the equipment. You need a proper microphone, what's called a condenser microphone, handheld microphones, computer microphones, video game microphones that are attached to helmets for those live on-action role-playing type games. Those don't work. Dynamic microphones for stage singers, they don't work either. You need to spend the money for the proper equipment. You need to have a very quiet space to record. Sometimes you have to actually build it the way I've done here. And it takes primarily the money and, most importantly, the time. You have to spend a lot of time on a daily basis networking, promoting your business, submitting auditions, and once you do start winning the work, which can take many years, once you start winning the work, then you have to obviously fit that into your schedule as well. It's a very fiercely competitive industry.
Kenneth, my background is I've done a lot of things. I'm old. Okay, let's just get that out there. But advertising and whatnot, and I know if I'm looking for someone, a new graphics artist, for example, they can provide me with a portfolio, either in person or online. Is it the same thing with you? Do you have a portfolio, if you will, of your voice, of things you've done that you can submit to people when they're looking to hire someone for a particular job?
Absolutely, absolutely, Bryan. I have my website, kennethbryantvoicetalent.com, which has some of my finished videos and animations for former clients, as well as just a veritable host of audio samples. And in addition, I am also members of various and sundry other websites across the internet that host work from the end client, the corporate clients, the smaller clients, and that host the auditions that act as a kind of a go-between in between them and the voice talents. And I also have several demos and voice samples on them as well. So absolutely, absolutely. Having demos and having voice samples, it's part and parcel of the industry.
I know how disappointed anyone is in business when they submit a proposal to get a job and they don't get it. But I'd have to think it's really hard not to take it personally when you're going to think, well, they don't like my voice. How do you treat it as a business and not take it personally on the rare occasions when you don't get the gig?
You know, that is a very good question, Bryan. The simple fact is that you will end up auditioning maybe upwards of 75 to 100 times a week, but you may hear back maybe once or twice. You submit and forget the audition. That's the mentality that you have to create in your mind. Because casting agents, the creative directors, the end clients, they're all very busy people, and they're going to collect upwards of 100, maybe 200 auditions. And chances are, unless you get yours in very quickly, they may not even hear it at all. And quite often, you just don't hear back from them. You have to develop a very thick skin, what I call a submit it and forget it mentality. And that's really the only way to go.
Submit it and forget it. I like that. Okay, well, let me ask you this. Have you ever been into an instance to where you've submitted for one job and don't hear anything, but then all of a sudden you get called out of the blue by somebody and you don't understand where they found out about you? Well, it's because they heard you for something else. They didn't want you, but now they want you. Does that happen?
Yeah, absolutely it does. That happens, and more to the point, when you submit the audition, there have been times I've won it 20 minutes later or upwards of a year later. And when that happens, I obviously, they'll tell me, hey, congratulations, you won this job. And I'm like, hey, that's great. Could you tell me what that was again? And I have to look up the audition and I'm like, oh, yes, of course, I remember now. But absolutely, both of those things happen. I get contacted from independent authors via my website to read their books into audio, or various and sundry other business representatives like recording studios. They've seen my website. And yes, as I said, submitting the audition and then winning it many months to upwards of a year later.
I've talked to actors a time or two and musicians, for example. I'll ask a musician, how cool is it when you're driving down the road and your song plays? How cool is it, Kenneth, when you're driving down the road and the commercial comes on for the car dealer and there you are? That's kind of neat, isn't it?
It's a little surreal, when listening. There's always, people don't like to listen to the sounds of their own voices. It's taken time for me to actually have an objective viewpoint on it. When I record and review, edit, and master my own auditions, I have to be very objective, and I have to, take into account that, okay, I'm doing the best I can here. And there are times when, yes, I have to redo it over and over because I just don't like how it sounds. And that's another thing about being a voiceover talent. You have to, put in the time to do as many auditions, or rather as many takes as needed to get it right. And it has to resonate. And it's very subjective. It's something that I think any voice talent wrestles with, truly.
Well, voice talent or talent in general, it's funny, the people who aren't in the business have no clue how long it took to record that 30-second commercial. Well, speaking of time, we're out of our 10 minutes today, Kenneth. Again, I could talk to you forever, but you've given us some great insight on an industry that, frankly, everyone is familiar with on the offset, but they don't know people like you who do it. Hey, thanks a lot, Kenneth. Keep doing what you're doing. Best of luck. Take care.
I appreciate it, Bryan. Thank you so much.